Hi and welcome. My name is Isam. I'm a senior designer at ISD Architects, where we help people realize their dream projects, whether it be residential or commercial or a renovation. In this video, I'm going to continue on the design phases or design process phases, where we started with the site analysis, and then we covered the zoning review, and in the last video we talked about programming or the functional program. In this video I'm going to talk about the conceptual design. Now, the conceptual design is not a phase defined as such. Many documents, many architectural practices call this stage as schematic design, especially in North America. Probably in Europe they would still call it conceptual design. However, I would like to include that phase before I talk about the schematic for a certain reason. Conceptual design is, as an expression, is synonymous with schematic design. This phase, the conceptual design or the schematic design, could represent two meanings or two roles simultaneously. One, it's a phase where client requirements that we discussed in the programming stage, where the client lists all the spaces that they need inside their facility, whether it's a home or it's a more complicated building, in what we called the functional program. Once that functional program has been assumed or has been written down, then an architectural form would express that program. Now, the other meaning of conceptual design, it's a phase that is a synthesis or a combination of basically four elements. One is the nature of site, as we explained here. The second, it's the space planning, as we expressed in the programming, where all the spaces are listed and interrelated, as we explained before. Three, it's the architect's design approach. So what is the architect's approach to this design? What his or her style, architectural style, is. That is one of the aspects of the conceptual design phase. Number four, it's the design philosophy or the self-identity of the client, whether it's an individual, a family, or a corporation, or even a small business. What is the identity of the client? What is the beliefs and philosophy behind the design that this client would like, or this owner would like to express? So we take care of all these four aspects of the conceptual design. At ISD Architects specifically, for example, and me personally, I take the two elements with the client values and the architect's approach seriously at this stage, at the conceptual design stage. We are concerned with creating a concept that is both expressing, first of all, the ideals and the aspirations and the philosophical approach of the owner, and second, what the architect is, or the designer himself or herself, approach to design and what they are best at, and how they can express that concept brilliantly within the parameter of the design of the owner's philosophy or the owner's self-identity. So there would be some sessions with the owner to ask them about what they would like to see. What is the image of their building? What would they like to express? At the conceptual level, the concept is important. The concept of the design, what the owner wants to say with his or her new building, what type of artistic expression would it like to reveal. However, as I said before, if the architect and the owner decided on a certain approach and they agreed on that certain approach, it is this stage, the conceptual stage, that this should be concluded. what approach are we using? And then within that approach, the architect or the designer could express and create what we call conceptual alternatives. What I would like to express always on the conceptual level is something called dialectics. The dialectics between the site characteristics, between the architect's concept of a dwelling unit, for example, or of an office building, or of a school, or of a library. And then there is the functional program that was discussed earlier at the programming phase. These elements have to dialectically interact with each other such that there would be a very good balance between all these elements in the final product. In other words, the conceptual phase is all about exploration, stretching the mind to explore options and possibilities and potential. It's sort of a brainstorming in a sketching format where the architect throws some ideas and the owner would interact with the architect to say, this idea is good, let's build on that. That idea we call conceptual phase. So to recap, the conceptual phase is the phase within the schematic design phase where the architect and the owner sits down together and explore the philosophy of the owner and the approach of the architect and the message or the statement that the building should give out to the society or to the urban neighborhood or urban area, such that this message would be compatible and matching with the self-identity of the owner, whether it's an individual, a family, or a company. I'd like to show an example of how the concept at this stage could be independent yet integrated with the site, and how that concept is not yet a schematic design because it lacks the specific requirements of the schematic design. Hopefully we'll discuss the schematic design per se in the next video. But I would like to move here to show you just an example of what I mean. This is a building, and it doesn't really matter what it is. It's just a concept of transparency that the owner would like to blend with nature, would like to express openness to sunlight, and also openness to the garden, especially on the living area or the reception area if it was an office building. This box, for example, is probably a striking box that within masses that are more enclosed and more solid. So the idea of contrast, for example, or the concept of contrast is also expressed here. So as you can see, this concept could not be done just in vacuum. It has to study the surrounding, whether there are towers here or other buildings that overlooks this box, for example, or that glazed box that is so transparent and beautiful in the summer and the night. So such ideas, such exploration can only be done, and it's best be done at this level. But it's not a separate phase. It is part of the schematic because it directly leads to the schematic, where everything here will be drawn properly, and we try to fit the functional program that the owner has agreed to do with the concept that we come up with, which is based, as I said, on many elements. Most of them has to be related to the self-image, to the artistic expression. Now, I've done a sketch that somehow contrasts the first sketch, which is more solid, more classical. Even though it's asymmetrical here, probably it's more symmetrical on the front. It's more closed and protective to the inner environment. It's less blending with the green or the nature. It is more of a statement that says, I'm unique, I don't want to blend with anyone else, and then it's a different character. I'm not saying that this is wrong and the first is correct, or vice versa. However, these decisions can be taken through useful and fruitful discussion with the owner in order to reach an approach before we even indulge in the schematic design phase. So as you can see, this is not a schematic yet, it's a concept. So based on that, the architect would understand what the self-image, what the philosophy of the owner would be, in which direction they would like to move along, so that the architect could help them in that, reinforcing that image, or find it out, because most of the time the owner cannot express it in terms of forms. They can express it in values. I hope you liked this video, and I'm really looking forward to working with some of you who are thinking to build, to bring your ideas, bring your aspirations, bring your dreams into reality. Under the light, they can take the shape and the form that could express your values and your aspiration and your artistic flavor. Please visit our website at www.isdarchitects.com and get some information. And if you have any comments or questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them. Thanks very much and take care.